Every morning it starts before your alarm does. The stretch, the sigh, the click of nails crossing the floor to find you. The low huff when you roll over instead of getting up. The bark at the mail truck that sounds nothing like the bark at the doorbell, which sounds nothing like the bark when a squirrel commits the unforgivable crime of existing in the backyard. You have heard these sounds so many times they have become wallpaper. Background noise in your own house. But they are not background. They are not random. What is happening in your living room every single day is something researchers have spent years trying to fully decode, using tools that did not exist a decade ago. And what they have found changes the way you understand every sound your dog has ever made at you. Those sounds are not just noise with feeling attached. They are structured. They carry specific, encoded information that other dogs detect instantly, and that your dog is counting on you to detect too, whether you realize it or not. A bark is not just a bark. Researchers who study this are careful with their language, because the word vocabulary implies something they want to be precise about. But they are equally careful to say that what your dog does with sound goes far beyond what most people imagine when they hear barking and think, he wants something, and leave it there. And part of what your dog is saying right now, in your house, today, is about you specifically. Today we are going into the actual science of what dogs say with their voices, how other dogs decode it, how you already decode more of it than you realize, and what your dog has concluded about you after watching you for this long. Stay until the end, because the last part is the one most owners never think about, and it will change how you hear the next bark that comes out of your dog's mouth. Number 1. The length and pitch of a bark is not random, and you already read it better than you think. Domestic dog barking is strange when you actually look at it. Wild canids like wolves barely bark at all. Wolf barks represent only about 2.4% of all wolf vocalizations, used narrowly for warning, defense, and protest. Dogs are different. Dogs bark constantly, across an enormous range of social situations, and researchers actually have a word for it. They call canine vocal communication hypertrophied, meaning it has been massively overgrown compared to its ancestral form. Domestication did not just change how dogs look, it rewired how much they talk, and to whom. Here is what that means inside your living room. A short, sharp series of barks. A long, sustained, lower bark. A rising, almost frantic series when the doorbell goes off. These are not interchangeable. Researchers studying how barks are structured found that humans interpret a dog's emotional state using consistent acoustic rules. Shorter barks tend to sound more positive to listeners, and higher-pitched sounds register as more intense. And here is the part that should stop you. This is not unique to dog listening. People apply the same basic acoustic rules to interpret dogs that they use to interpret other humans. Your brain is not guessing when you hear your dog's bark change. It is running the same emotional decoding software it uses on people, applied automatically to a different species. So the next time your dog's bark shifts mid-sequence, longer to shorter, low to high, you are not imagining that something changed. Your dog adjusted the broadcast in real time, and some part of you, without being told to, already picked it up. Number 2. Your dog's bark is built differently depending on who it is talking to, and it knows the difference. This is where it gets stranger. Researchers analyzing recorded barks across different situations have cataloged, using detailed acoustic breakdowns, distinct subtypes of barking tied to different contexts and emotional states. Not all breeds even produce the same range of them. Large structured data sets built from real recordings now classify barks into more than a dozen functional categories. Normal, aggressive, fearful, and playful barks directed at strangers. Sounds tied specifically to interaction with the owner. Whines that register as positive or negative. Growls. Barks associated with sadness or anxiety. And a distinct excited bark reserved for when the owner comes home. Read that list again. A dog does not have one home arrival sound and one stranger at the door sound that happen to feel different to you. Researchers have confirmed they are acoustically distinct categories, produced on purpose for a specific audience. The bark your dog uses for the delivery driver is not the same instrument as the sound your dog makes the second your key hits the lock. One is a broadcast to an unknown threat. The other is addressed to you, specifically, and to no one else in the room. And dogs are not just performing this for humans. Among themselves, dogs pay close attention to who is barking. Researchers have found that dogs react more strongly to the barks of dogs they already know than to unfamiliar ones. And listeners, including human listeners with no special training, can often tell individual dogs apart by bark alone, especially when the bark was recorded in a context the listener could intuitively read. The voice is identifiable. The context is legible. None of it is static. Number 3. There is a sound dog owners hear constantly and almost never name. And naming it changes everything. It is the in-between sound, not the bark, not the whine. That low, conversational chain of grunts, huffs, and half-vocalized exhales a dog makes while lying near you, while watching you cook, while following you room to room with no specific demand attached. Most owners describe it the same way if you ask them. He just talks sometimes. That description is closer to accurate than people realize. Researchers studying dog communication describe how dogs layer multiple signal types together. Vocal sound combined with posture, gaze, tail position, and proximity to produce what amounts to a compound message. Recent research demonstrates that dogs communicate complex emotional information through combinations of vocalizations and physical signals, forming a layered communication system that other dogs read intuitively and that humans have to learn to interpret consciously. The soft mutter your dog makes while lying across the room from you is rarely just sound. It is sound plus posture, plus where the eyes are pointed, plus how close the body is. Strip out everything but the audio, and you are only getting a fraction of the message. That is exactly why it is so easy to mistake it for nothing. That low conversational sound, the one you've never had a name for, is contact behavior. It is your dog narrating its own contentment out loud, in your direction, because you are the intended audience. Number 4. A sudden change in your dog's voice is information, not just behavior, and it deserves to be treated that way. Here is something with real weight to it. A sudden increase in barking frequency or a change in the quality of a dog's vocal sounds can be an early signal of pain, discomfort, or illness rather than a behavioral issue. Dogs are not transparent about pain the way people assume. In evolutionary terms, visibly showing weakness attracts predators, so dogs are built to mask it, which means by the time the masking fails and the sound changes, something has often already been true for a while. This matters because most owners file vocal changes under personality or phase. A dog that is suddenly noisier, or whose voice has shifted in a way that is hard to describe but unmistakable if you live with the animal, is not always being difficult. Sometimes the voice is the only early warning system available, and it is one most owners have been trained by years of normal barking to tune out. Number 5. Artificial intelligence is now confirming, acoustically, what attentive owners have suspected for years. Researchers at the University of Michigan, working with Mexico's National Institute of Astrophysics, Optics, and Electronics, built AI systems trained first on human speech and then redirected toward dog vocalizations. The models can identify whether a dog's bark conveys playfulness or aggression, and the same systems can extract other information from the sound alone, including the animal's age, breed, and sex. The lead researcher described it directly. Using speech models built for human language opens a new way to understand the nuances packed into dog barks. What that means is simple and a little unsettling. A bark is not a flat signal. It is dense with information your ear is not trained to fully extract, but a trained model can. Age, sex, breed, emotional register, all sitting inside a sound you've been hearing your whole life as the dog is barking again. Number 6. What your dog has already concluded about you. Here is what all of it adds up to. Your dog is not a fixed personality that occasionally makes noise at you. Your dog is running a continuous layered broadcast, tuned specifically to you, built from years of watching how you move, what you respond to when you come home, and how you react when things go wrong. The bark that greets the mail carrier and the bark that greets you are not the same category of sound, because you are not in the same category as the mail carrier. You never were. The low, contented muttering when you're in the next room. The bark that shortens and rises the instant your car turns into the driveway. The silence, total, relaxed, untroubled silence, when you get up in the middle of the night, walk past the bed, and your dog doesn't even lift its head. That silence is not indifference. It is a conclusion, reached over months or years, that your movement at 2 a.m. requires no response because it has been catalogued over and over as safe. You have been assessed. Constantly, quietly, acoustically. Every sound your dog has ever aimed at you carries some trace of that ongoing evaluation, including the sounds you've stopped consciously hearing because they happen every day. The dog that talks to you in that low half language while you cook dinner is not making noise to fill space. It is the result of a long, specific, individual decision that you are the right audience for that sound, and almost no one else qualifies. You know now what that low huff means. You know now that the bark changing mid-sequence wasn't nothing. The next time your dog looks at you and makes a sound you've heard 1,000 times before, you'll hear it differently. It means the evaluation is ongoing, and so far, you're the one it talks to. Tell me in the comments, does your dog have a sound that's just for you? One nobody else gets? I want to hear what it sounds like. I read every one of these.